Hello there. In today's video I want to talk about having fun with Blender. This is a continuation of a video I've made last time. Just to summarize very quickly, there is a moment in the game in Fall of Magic Castle, which was made with the Playdate SDK, when you hit a moment where the gameplay changes slightly and you are dealing with a interactive comic book where you can follow the story of Sir James, and I use two specific technologies to create this kind of an effect. The first one is panels, which is a specific Playdate specific library made to create interactive comics for Playdate. I detailed all of that in my previous video, and today I want to talk a little bit about how I created those specific panels, because they were not found on the internet, they were not bought or anything like that. I actually created them within Blender. Blender is a free and open source 3D creation software. This is one of those multimedia massive software kits that are just a little bit too intimidating for their own good. And I've combined Blender with Blender Kit, which is an asset library that is integrated directly into Blender. The Blender Kit has different plans. There's a free plan, there's a full plan, there's some add-ons. For the purpose of the Fall of Magic Castle, I purchased the full plan, which gave me access to the full library, and I had more assets to choose from. The way that all of this worked was, well, you have to install Blender and then put a Blender Kit inside of it. It's like a plugin. And then once you're inside the Blender editor, you are able to then create scenes. And by creating scenes, I mean that you can import specific assets, specific models, like a scene or a character, and then by using the camera function, you can. It's a bit like photo mode in modern AAA games. You can just zoom around the scene and create a specific moment to your liking from a specific angle. And when it also comes to editing 3D environments like these ones, you also have the option to modify the posture of certain characters. Some of them are rigged. I think that's the correct word for it. When a character is rigged, that means that you can start moving around their bones and muscles, and they should behave semi-natural in terms of how they look with different body positions. So once I have access to Blender Kit, I can look for a specific character, for example the knight, and the knight takes a moment to load all of those assets. But wait, now actually I'm in the scenes submenu. I should choose the models submenu, and then I can immediately see a couple of knight related or just in general knight assets, medieval times assets, and by browsing through them I can find the Templar Knight. That was specifically the model that I've used to create Sir James in the panels interactive comic book. That's him. And right now I cannot use it anymore because my full plan has ended a long time ago. So just just to showcase how the workflow was, I'm gonna find another character that's similar. Let's say this one, for example, a rigged knight base. All right, so I click, and then I've already downloaded that character before, so that's why it loaded instantly. But normally it would load for a little while, and then you have access to your new character. This way you see that the character has those multiple layers right here on the right side, the light, the camera, the rigged night, all of the pose. The night is made of lots of single elements, and if, like I said, if the night is rigged, if the character is rigged, then you can start moving specific parts of that character. I'm not a Blender expert by any means. I remember when I was doing this, I didn't even do a tutorial or anything like that. I just wanted to have this specific situation of putting a character inside of a level and then modifying the camera and the character so that it can create a specific scene. I remember doing all of those scenes in one day, if I'm not mistaken, but it was a full day of battling with the UI of this massive software. And also my biggest enemy was not those weren't assets or levels or anything like that. Those were keyboard shortcuts and just general UI navigation. I'm gonna stumble a bit in this video as well, because I just think that this is quite a difficult piece of software to grasp, and I haven't touched it in months. So this is just gonna be a simple showcase of the workflow that I did for the Playdate, not a proper tutorial per se. Right now we're in object mode, but we can go into pose mode, and then we start seeing slightly different things that are highlighted right here. If I choose one of them and then select the G, hold the G key on the keyboard and then start moving, yes, the character's arm starts moving a little bit. I can put it in very odd angles as well and create very strange looking characters. That's also a possibility. By holding the S key, instead I can change the size of certain elements. Let me check. Like, this is still not good. Maybe here. Oh yeah, like this. I can create a big handed Hulk knight. And since I'm not an expert in any of that, the results that I got were mostly trial and error. I just wanted to have something that works good enough. And in my case, it wasn't anything like complicated poses. I just wanted the character to lie down, like you can see here on the first panel in a T pose, and then zoom into the character a little bit more, and then move around the space that I've created. So the poses that I've created with those characters were very, very simplistic, and it was more about rotating them than actually changing any of the positions of joints and muscles and whatnot. All right, but we have our character. We've got our character. We can also select the full character and then scale them up as well, or scale them down. As you can see, they now it looks like they're doing exercises, because I think at least that this is the effect of this rigging of this whole character. They try to behave semi naturally when you're putting them in different poses and scenarios. All right, but then we have our character. So I'll remove him for now. I'll go back into object mode and then delete, and then delete again. Okay. This section in the panels comic book was placed inside of a dungeon, and for that we have a specific category. It's called scenes, and here if we type in dungeon, I think that was also a paid asset. Here it is, low poly dungeon with lights. This was pretty cool because the lights were editable. I could actually select each of those lights and alter their luminescence, was it called, or just simply brightness? I don't remember, but it was possible to make very bright lights so that I could, when I was editing those screenshots into 1-bit dithered black and white images, I could actually control a little bit how the scene looks, not by changing the dithering filters, but by changing the strength of the light sources, which was very helpful. Here I won't show you this because it's locked behind the full plan, so I'll just load something else like this old medieval dungeon room. And there it is. Here's the old medieval dungeon room. If I go inside of it, I can see that there is some stuff inside of here already, some rubble, some chains, a door, stuff like that, and those two floating pieces, which are actually cameras, and those cameras allow you to position your viewpoint and then render that viewpoint. The thing is that right now, as you can see, all of it is just in this mode where you don't see the shading, the lights. You just see a very simple version of the graphics that you would get eventually. I'm not really sure about the mechanics of this. I can only imagine that this is because of how expensive it is for a normal personal laptop to just render any scene with all of the lights and all of the shadows and whatnot and all of the textures. So they just use a very low budget version of those graphics for editing, and then if you want to actually render the scene, you have to do it in a separate step. But let's imagine for a second that this room was actually the low poly dungeon. Let's imagine that I've placed my knight in a pose that I liked already in this room, and then let's imagine that I've moved the camera into a position that was facing directly the knight, as it is, for example, in this image right here. So once I select the camera, go to view, and then in the cameras section I say set active object as camera. Okay, I can see now what the camera will portray, and if I hit F12, I start rendering this scene. Here are the samples. This is a rendering technique, I guess, where each sample will provide more detail. That's how I see it. I don't know how it actually works, but this is how I see it. I'm also wondering how the recording of this stage is gonna pan out, because I remember that rendering scenes was very heavy. My MacBook became immediately super hot, so that operation is definitely one of the heaviest I've seen, some of the heaviest workloads I've seen on my device, and I can imagine that this is exactly the reason why I don't see that on the main screen, on the editing screen. Okay, but right now we are at sample 16 out of 32. It shouldn't take much longer to render the whole scene. Let me pause and resume after it's done. Okay, not bad. It took about 30 seconds to render it fully, and this is how it looks. So if a knight was placed in that scene, then the knight would also be part of that scene, obviously, because it's like a photo mode. It's like a camera. You just shoot a photo of what you're seeing right now, and this is basically how each of those screens were made. Each of those screens was just playing around with the camera, with the positioning, with the zooming, and in some cases editing the brightness of certain light sources. So it was very fun because I could simulate a 3D FPS look without programming any 3D. Even though I consider Blender very difficult to work with, especially at like first glance, it was still much faster than just dabbing into 3D graphics myself. I think that would have taken infinitely more time than doing something like this. The end results I have saved here in a few screenshots. This was the dungeon that was used for the Knight's Choose Your Own Adventure story. There were two more characters in there that I've placed in specific poses as well. here's the knight and his original T pose, and here are some of the screenshots that I took when I was rendering those specific scenes. They're not very high quality in terms of resolution. They didn't need to be, since that's the Playdate screen. It's quite small. I think I've even rendered them directly in those screen dimensions of the Playdate screen, just to save up a little of resources and not slow down my laptop so much. I don't know if it was necessary or not, but that's how I did it. And then once I had all of those screens, then I used a couple of dithering techniques, dithering filters. I have a separate video about editing assets, where you can see what kind of tools I used for all kinds of graphical assets to make them 1-bit. All in all, I have to say that this was one of the most pleasant experiences when working on the Fall of Magic Castle. That development was quite bumpy. It had quite a few moments where I felt like I've reached quite a significant roadblock, and this was the idea for creating this was boiling in my head for quite some time, for a couple of weeks. And by the time I sat down, downloaded Blender, and started working with all of those characters and poses and whatnot, I already knew exactly what I wanted to do, and I was very happy that despite my complete lack of any experience when it comes to 3D modeling, 3D sculpting, I was able to come up with this result within just one day. So that was very gratifying, and it was also nice to just step away from the 2D pixel sprite realm, where every frame of animation has to look good enough to be representative in the game and whatnot, and just play around, goof around with a dollhouse and be the doll master for a second, and just shape those poor characters in a way that I found enjoyable. So that was nice. That was just a nice experience, and I thoroughly recommend branching out from time to time to different software, just to see what kind of things you can achieve with them, and then maybe incorporating some of that into your game if it fits, if you think that it's going to be fun for the player. If you're having fun developing it, then that's what ultimately matters. All right, thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one.